Welcome to the second season of The Tale of Show. If you haven't yet watched the first season, I highly recommend doing so now, either through the channel directly, the pop-up link that will appear, the video description, or the pinned comment. In the first season of The Tale of Show, we discovered that we are living in an era of awakened powers and energies spreading across the world. As a result, strange and unusual events began to unfold. Many people succeeded in awakening their supernatural abilities, but as these powers continued to evolve, malicious forces emerged, seeking to misuse these abilities for their own gain. To counter this, an organization called Dragon was established. Its mission is to regulate supernatural powers and protect civilians from external threats. The organization is led by the powerful Ni, who once granted power to the hero Eren. On one occasion, a group of intruders infiltrated the nation. Ni faced these elite fighters all on his own. Though they ganged up on him, he proved to be a formidable opponent. He deflected their attacks with astounding skill and agility, even reflecting their strikes back upon them with precision. When one of the attackers attempted to flee, Ni struck him with a blade, halting his escape. He then turned his attention to a towering warrior and swiftly defeated him with his sword in mere seconds. Sensing danger, the leader of the intruders tried to escape, but in the blink of an eye, Ni appeared beside him and delivered a strike so fierce it sent him flying from the far east to the far west. The intruder rose once more, channeling all his energy to summon a blazing fire dragon. But Ni was already ready. With swift precision, he cleaved the dragon in half and vanquished the enemy for good. Meanwhile, our protagonist, Sho, remains a humble high school student who sells tofu in the afternoons. His main skill? Trickery, to earn points from people through clever deception. One day, a plump man wearing a wig approached Sho, hoping to buy his famously delicious tofu. Sho told him, "It's truly special. It'll bring back your youth." The man was stunned, and his wig fell off from the shock. Sho turned his face and asked, "So, how many would you like?" The man replied, "Give me 2, no 3. But Sho, seeing an opportunity, said, "Unfortunately, there's only one left." The man agreed, "Fine, I'll take it." Sho then slowly waved the tofu before him and said, "Sorry, this one's just for display." All the while, Sho's point counter was rapidly ticking up as the man desperately begged to buy it at any price. Just then, Sho received a message from his teacher. That evening, a school meeting was scheduled for parents only. The staff at the door weren't allowing anyone but parents to enter. Sho, disguised as one of them, approached. The attendant gave him a knowing glance and let him in. Sho walked proudly into the meeting hall, where all the parents were gathered. One of them was complaining that his son had faced serious danger in the woods and was nearly lost. Leo's father stood beside him and said, "My son was lucky. He didn't even get a scratch." A woman in front of him added, "We all know your son is brilliant. He's surely destined for a bright future." The man chuckled proudly. Then another woman said, "I heard there's another student, Sho, who managed to defeat 10 skeletal creatures all on his own." Leo's father looked embarrassed. Just then, Sho strode in confidently and said, "Only 10? That's nothing. I took down 50. He cut through the skeletons like slicing vegetables for a salad. Leo's father boiled with rage, extended his hand to greet Sho, and Sho replied, "Sorry, remind me. Whose father are you again?" Everyone in the room was shocked by his boldness. At that moment, Teacher Z entered and said, "What are you doing here? Why didn't your father come?" The parents were stunned, and Leo's father nearly banged his head against the wall. Sho pulled Z aside and whispered, "Did you forget? I'm an orphan. I have no family." Z responded, "All right, no problem. Go ahead and sit with them." Z then addressed the parents from the podium. "You all know what happened in the woods, and the dangers your children faced. That's why I want to hear your stance on this matter." One parent slammed his hand on the table in frustration, saying, "This was your fault to begin with. You should never have exposed our kids to such danger." All the parents nodded in agreement. Z responded, "You've misunderstood me. If you're afraid for your children, you're free to withdraw them. We never force anyone to stay." Sho raised his hand and asked, "What will happen to those who decide to remain?" Z answered, "Students who stay will receive advanced training, monthly salaries, and special allowances." At that moment, the parents began reconsidering their decision. Sho lit up with excitement, thinking, "Perfect. I'll have another source of income besides tofu sales." Z continued, "Your children possess special abilities. We must harness these talents to build the future and to protect our land." Leo's father raised his hand and said, "I approve of my son staying." Even the angry parent gave his approval. One by one, the rest of the parents raised their hands to support their children's continued involvement and enrollment in Dragon Organization. Later that night at home, Sho held the school application papers, unsure how to explain the situation to Law. He decided to delay the conversation and spun the Wheel of Fortune instead. He waited as it turned, only for a tofu to appear. He spun again and once more. Tofu. Again and again. Tofu. Finally, something else. A sandwich. Annoyed, he threw himself onto the bed as his point meter kept dropping. Frustrated, he kicked the wheel one more time, and this time, a strange fruit appeared. He ate it, and suddenly felt a strange surge of energy. Time itself froze around him. A glowing meteor of energy descended from the sky and struck Sho directly, fusing into his body. He found himself floating in a mysterious place among the clouds, where he slept peacefully and happily, until he woke up again in the real world. Sho returned to the Wheel of Fortune and spun it once more. Then he stepped out of his room. Outside, La was sitting and eating potato chips. Beside her, a squirrel stared longingly at the snack. She gave it one, and it devoured it quickly. She was about to offer a second, but quickly pulled it into her mouth, shocking the squirrel and causing Sho's point counter to tick again. Sho approached the door and asked, "Do you want me to bring you something?" She replied, "I want pancakes, noodles, tomatoes, and eggs." Sho stood there, visibly irritated by her strange list. He slammed the door and left. Meanwhile, she continued snacking, and the squirrel sat there weeping, hoping she'd toss him just one more. Sho left the house and headed to the old man next door, his trainer. The old man said to Sho, "I told you that you wouldn't come." Sho smiled slyly and thought to himself, "Of course this old man wanted something from me." Then he began preparing for his training. The old man had learned that Sho was going to join the Dragnet organization, so he asked him, "What's your plan?" Sho replied, "I have no plan," and took points from him, which annoyed the old man. Sho explained, "Don't get me wrong. I mean, as long as I live happily with love, that's enough for me." At that moment, the old man took his sword and handed it to him, offering advice about power. He warned him that those who gain power may grow distant from themselves over time and end up harming others. Then he said, "Let's continue our sword training." He began explaining how to channel his energy properly, how to control the sword's power, and how to use it in battle. Afterward, he gave him the sword, saying, "You're still at the beginning and need more training." Sho gripped the sword, gathered all his energy, and struck the air. With the very first attempt, he managed to slice a tree leaf in half. The old man stood up, entered his house, and slammed the door in fury. He was deeply upset that Sho had succeeded on his first try. Still, he gave Sho 1,000 points at once. The next day, Sho's friend Ji came to visit him at his house after a previous invitation. While walking around the house, Ji noticed the stickers Sho's sister had put on the fridge and asked, "Where's your sister?" Sho replied, "Still asleep." Ji said, "Though our classmates don't like you because of the tofu stall you run, your house is never messy. On the contrary, it's neat and quite lovely." Sho answered, "I like order. I enjoy living my life happily." Ji asked, "Why don't you have any friends? What if you got into trouble one day and needed help?" Sho replied, "Don't worry. I can handle myself." Ji said, "Since we're going to join Dragnet together, we should cooperate." Sho replied, "I need to join the organization to train and change my future." Then he said, "By the way, I have a strange request. Can you give me 3 drops of blood from your finger?" Ji answered, "No problem." Sho was surprised and asked, "Aren't you curious why I'm asking for your blood?" Ji replied, "Would you have told me if I asked?" Sho said, "No." Ji responded, "Then shut up." Sho began preparing the tools needed to take the blood. After a while, Ji left the house, and the old man and his wife bid him farewell. Sho also said goodbye, while snatching a few points from them quickly. Sho entered the house again, and Lu had just woken up. He said to her, "Come sit next to me. I have good news for you." She came closer, still dazed, and asked, "What is it?" He said excitedly, "Congratulations, you're going to school." She was shocked, fully awakened, and yelled, "Good news? This is a disaster. I wake up to this catastrophe. I don't want to go to school." He said, "You know you came from the orphanage to live with me. We used to be beggars with nothing, but now we have money, and you should live a normal life. Frankly, if you don't go to school, then no noodles, no pancakes, no tomatoes, no eggs." Lu was stunned by his threat and said, "Looks like I'll have to agree, for the sake of noodles, pancakes, tomatoes, and eggs." Sho turned his face and said, "Mission complete. All respect." She said reluctantly, "Fine, I'll go to school." He brought her some food he had gotten from the Wheel of Fortune so she could have breakfast before leaving. She was still in shock that he was serious, especially when she saw points flying out of her in anger. After finishing breakfast, she left the house and walked toward the squirrel who was eating apples with the rats. She grabbed a broom and chased the rats away, saying to the squirrel, "Don't hang around those rats again, they'll corrupt your brother." Sho called out to her, "Come on, change your clothes quickly." Then he prepared the blood sample he took from Ji and the documents that were to be delivered to the school. He said to her, "We'll meet with Director Xiao tonight to hand him these documents so he can recommend you." In the evening, Sho met with Director Xiao at the restaurant and handed him Lu's documents. Lu was extremely upset about going to school, while Sho looked very pleased. Afterward, Sho returned to the old man to resume his sword training. The old man asked him, "Why didn't you tell me you were sending Lu to school?" Sho replied, "Of course I can't do without your services. You'll be doing her homework." The old man was deeply annoyed and points started leaking out of him. Then he asked, "Did you meet with the Shiab and give him a test tube containing blood?" Sho tried to dodge the question, but the old man said, "Enough lying. You know they use blood samples to assess a student's special abilities. You and Lu both have exceptionally high abilities, but you're afraid of drawing attention to yourself. That's why you took your friend G's blood instead. And you'll ask me, how did I know? Well, I've been your neighbor for years, and I've never seen a classmate visit you before. So I was sure it was you who invited him." He continued, "But you must be careful. There's a problem. Dragnet has a DNA library, and your friend's blood is almost certainly in their system. Your secret will be exposed. It's only a matter of time." Sho was shocked and started to feel anxious. The old man handed him another test tube and said, "You'd better go now and replace it with the one in Xiao's office. He often leaves the samples on his desk. If you don't do it before the school opens in the morning, someone else will collect them." Sho thought to himself, "This organization is not as simple as I imagined." He went to wake Lu, who was still half asleep. She checked the time, it was 4 in the morning, and angrily threw the phone at his face. Sho caught it and said, "Hurry up. I need you to bring out your personal criminal." Despite being grossed out by him, she went out and brought the corpse, which was still laughing from season 1 because of Sho. Lu looked at him and said, "This is all your fault, you jerk. That laughter is from the food you gave him, you scoundrel." Sho said, "The important thing now is for you to take him to Xiao's office and replace the test tube there with this one." The criminal took the tube and dashed off to complete the mission. Lu said, "Since you woke me up this early, why don't you treat me to breakfast?" Sho replied, "Let's finish the mission first." Then he activated the formation eye and sent his phantom into the sky to monitor the criminal, who was running at full speed. He reached the school, which was heavily fortified with guards and surveillance cameras, but Lu expertly controlled him, making him avoid all the guards until he reached Xiao's office and entered through the window. He searched for the tube, and once he found it, he quickly made the switch. Now it was time to escape. Lu tried to guide the body to retreat quietly, but unfortunately, one of the guards spotted him, raised his weapon, and said, "Surrender." The corpse began laughing, and the guard was completely baffled. Lu shouted, "This is all your fault, you idiot." The corpse kept laughing until sunrise. The guard took out his phone to report the intrusion. The corpse tried to stop him, but sadly, the news of an intruder spread, and all the guards began chasing him down. The corpse was hidden in one of the rooms, while 2 guards were searching for it. Suddenly, one of the guards grabbed the corpse and threw it at the other, then tried to flee the school swiftly. However, he was struck by a bullet fired from a distance that pierced his body. At that moment, Sho screamed in terror for his sister Lu, fearing she had been hit as well, but she replied calmly, "I am fine, and even the corpse was unharmed. As long as it is not dead, I will be fine." The corpse then dashed quickly out of the school amidst a state of alarm among the teachers, security, and members of the Digent organization. Meanwhile, the teacher Z could not comprehend how such a breach had occurred, especially since nothing had changed. Everything remained as it was. At that point, the director Xiao ordered an examination of the fingerprints found on the wall of the test tube to verify if his fingerprints were present. Teacher Z remarked, "Man, it's just a student's blood sample. Who would attack a school for that?" Xiao replied, "Checking the fingerprints will not harm us in any way." Afterwards, Sho went to his elderly neighbor's house. The old man was surprised by their visit, and Shu explained, "I came to replace the tube as you told me, but I heard gunfire from afar, got scared, and returned. Can you help us by changing it this time?" The old man agreed, saying, "Only this once, since it's the first time you've asked me. But don't ask me again." Shu thanked him for the assistance. The old man entered his home and pondered Sho's words. Could the morning gunfire have been related to Sho? His wife took the tube from him and said, "There was a black ghost laughing non-stop there, and it was hit by a bullet while fleeing." He responded, "Perhaps Sho truly has no connection, especially since his sister Lu was unharmed." His wife added, "Could it be that his sister is the trump card he relies on?" He replied, Possibly. Honestly, I would be surprised if he had no trump card. She asked, then why didn't you tell me to change the tube yesterday? He answered, maybe they do not want to help us. Anyway, it's their problem to fix. Meanwhile, at the school, members of the organization were watching a video of the criminal laughing, trying to find any clues. Director Xiao was furious at this laughing ghost, and someone said, surely that ghost is foolish. Shortly after, the test tube's fingerprint results arrived. The teacher informed the director that the tube contained only his fingerprints and nothing else had been stolen. Xiao was nearly exploding with rage at the criminal who left no trace. Meanwhile, Shou and Lu were having breakfast together. Shou said, finally, you will go to school. Lu looked at him with disdain and said, do you know anything other than school? Every time you say school, school. If the old man had agreed to help us earlier, we would have been done by now. Shu replied, that is why you must train harder to control your energy. You can even send the scout birds to inspect the area. It wouldn't matter if we lost one. He lifted his bowl of noodles and ate voraciously, while the squirrel perched atop her head wished to taste a bite. When Shu noticed it, a mischievous idea came to mind to use the squirrel. The squirrel was afraid of Lu because she forbade it from dealing with the rats, but when it saw Lu did not oppose, it went to the window and whistled, summoning the rats. Shu said, very good. Can we train them to gather information? The squirrel shook its head and made gestures that Shu did not understand. Lu translated, he says those rats are stupid and don't understand anything. Indeed, the rats looked utterly foolish. Shu told the squirrel, now I will make them drink this magic water to become smarter, and you will control them. The squirrel nodded in agreement. It lined the rats up and made each drink from the water. At that moment, the rats transformed into smart, soft-furred creatures. The line dwindled until it was empty. All the rats were now under the squirrel's control. The squirrel signaled Shou that the mission was accomplished. However, Shou was frustrated because he could not understand the squirrel. He said Lu must always translate for him. He sat thinking of a solution to improve communication between him and the squirrel. Then an idea struck him. He picked up the squirrel and said, from today, I will teach you to read and write. He sat it in front of a tablet and gave it a pencil, saying, start memorizing the letters you see. Every day I will teach you 40 new words, and your homework is to write each word in a full line. The squirrel was scared and muttered to itself, why are they doing this to me? Meanwhile, Lu held her school admission letter, upset about the previous events. Outside, Shou was preparing her bag, recalling childhood days when she was small, and now she was grown and going to school. In the morning, Shou took her to school. Lu was upset about going. Shou quietly advised, take care of yourself at school. Do not show your power in front of anyone, and do not hit your classmates. Lu entered the classroom, and the teacher asked the students to welcome the new student. Lu introduced herself reluctantly, and the students were surprised by her coldness. The teacher said, you cannot bring squirrels to class. We are here to learn. Lu pointed to the squirrel on her forehead and sat in her seat. Meanwhile, Shou went to his high school, happily activating the system after seeing the points Lu had earned for the school. Parents were bidding farewell to their children who, like Shou, had joined the Dragon organization. Teacher Z greeted Shou and thanked him for joining, saying, from now on, we are colleagues. It was the first time Shou felt someone cared for him. Then Director Xiao stepped onto the platform. All the students stood in line as he began a speech thanking them for joining Dragon. He told them the road ahead was fraught with death and danger, but now they would protect the country. He raised his hand and shouted some passionate words, which the students echoed with fervor. Parents captured this proud moment in photos. Xiao told them, within half a month you will receive your membership permits, uniforms, swords, and all that belongs to the Dragon organization. After the meeting, all students were moved by his words, except Shu, who suddenly noticed a massive influx of points from his sister's school. He thought, God protect her. Suddenly, a teacher called for him urgently because Lu had caused trouble by hitting classmates. Parents gathered around Lu, shouting at her for hurting their children. Lu did not respond. One mother pushed her, saying, don't do this again. Lu got angry and was about to fight, but Shu arrived just in time, apologizing and asking what happened. They told him, watch the surveillance cameras and you will understand everything. It turned out Lu and her squirrel had hit and injured the boys. Lu left the room saddened as Shu continued apologizing to the parents, who harshly blamed him because of her. After they left, Lu approached Shou to apologize, but he ignored her completely and walked ahead without speaking. She followed sadly, wanting to apologize, but he kept walking ahead of her. She almost tripped while running after him. He did not speak to her until they reached home. At the doorstep, Lu burst into tears and said, forgive me. Please don't send me back to the orphanage. I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. Please don't kick me out. Shu climbed to the rooftop while Lu was still crying below. After a while, he called her to come up. She got up shyly and sat beside him. He asked, "Do you know the mistake you made?" She replied, "Yes. The mistake was bringing the squirrel with me." He said to her, "We must always act wisely because this world is harsh. Therefore we must be strong, but at the same time, we must be cautious and maintain a balance between strength and caution. Although your power is great, it must not be used to harm others. You must realize the consequences before you take any action." She replied, "Understood." He approached her and said, "I have forgiven you for what you did." She asked him, "And what did you do today?" He answered, "I am about to enter a new matter today, and I want your opinion. Should I fight for the people or not?" She said, "Of course, you must fight for them. We must fight if the people we love are in danger, like our old neighbor, his wife, the nearby vendor, and all those important to us." He said, "I am not talking about them, but about people we do not know. Should we fight for those whose faces or names we don't even know? And all this just because someone called for fighting and defending them? Why would anyone risk danger or death for nothing?" She touched his head and said, "Defend our country. By doing so you also protect those we love." Sho laughed and said, "You have become a wise person now." She stood beside him and said, "But I was happy when you defended me today." He replied, "Of course no one can bother you as long as I am here, but we must admit our mistakes when we make any." The two of them continued talking and laughing together, then stood up joyfully, wishing to always remain well. In one of the old Chinese buildings, a student was training in swordsmanship, with his teacher standing beside him. The teacher was not pleased with the student's performance and said, "You need to train more daily. If my master were still alive and saw your level, he would have died because of you. With your current abilities, you need 20 years of training to open the gate." The student heard these words, threw his sword on the ground, feeling frustrated, and began to cry. The teacher approached him and said, "Do not be upset. Train well, and you will reach your goal. If my master were here, he would have brought you sweets." The student smiled. The teacher said, "I will teach you something important. While training with the sword, shout 'Open' each time you strike." The student took the sword and shouted "Open" with every hit, continuing this for days but without any result. After 20,000 failed attempts, he sat crying. The teacher said, "Perhaps swordsmanship is not suitable for you. Tomorrow, I will teach you something else." The student cried even more after hearing this. Time returned to the present, revealing that the student we saw was the old man himself when he was young. His wife asked him, "Why are you distracted? What is wrong?" He replied, "I was just remembering the days when I trained in swordsmanship. I thought my teacher was deceiving me, and now I say the same to Sho." He added, "It is strange that I spent 2 full years training to open the gate, while Sho managed to open it in only 2 months. He stood and went toward the window, seeing Sho training to open the gate while shouting, "Open." The old man said, "Stop shouting. Say, 'Open' just once." Sho replied, "The more I train, the better I control the gate's opening." The teacher looked at him in astonishment and said, "Didn't I tell you before to take your time training? Opening the gate faster is not necessarily better." He felt pain in his stomach and continued training. Each time he opened the gate, he was surrounded by clouds, and he was required to turn the clouds into rain. The problem was that the more clouds surrounded him, the more he suffered from sudden diarrhea and had to rush to the bathroom. Once, Lu was still awake and went to the bathroom, but found the door locked and the bathroom was singing. He said, "Is it not enough that I run the bathroom? Now it sings too." He came out and said, "I was not singing. You must have misheard me." She passed by him on the couch and said, "I am sure I heard you singing." He said, "No, I was searching for a trip for us." She was very happy with the idea and said, "We know we are students and get tickets at half price. We must seize the opportunity and go on many trips before graduation." He said, "I have never ridden the green train before, so this time we will take it, and next time we'll fly." He took his phone and searched for tickets. She looked and said, "The green train takes 22 hours. You are so stingy." He laughed and said, "This is a new experience for you." She was very annoyed. The next day, Sho was training with the old man in swordsmanship. The old man was teaching him new skills, and Sho was impressed. He gave him the sword and said, "Show me if you can perform this move." Sho grabbed the sword, opened the gate, and moved to the clouds. He began practicing turning the clouds into rain but did not succeed. The teacher said, "Did you see how difficult this is? It requires a lot of training. In our days, we didn't sleep to master the clouds, so you must be mentally prepared." Sho said, Such training will be very enjoyable. The old man was shocked and said, enjoyable? Sho took the sword and tried again. The teacher entered and watched Sho controlling the clouds. Sho was very focused and skilled. In the end, Sho succeeded in dropping a raindrop, turning the clouds into rain, and producing a distinct gust of wind. The old man was amazed because the powerful ancestors, when turning clouds into rain, had a distinct sound like the wave of the sea. He asked his teacher about this sound, who replied, I do not know. I have never heard it before. But the elders say it sounds like the sea wave. Currently, the old man was very annoyed because all this training caused him severe diarrhea. Sho said, I feel I succeeded in turning clouds into rain. The old man said, don't be too happy. You have a long way ahead. After turning clouds into rain, you must turn rain into rivers and rivers into seas. Then the old man rested while Sho continued training. After a while, Sho said, I have decided to go on a trip with Lu. The old man was happy and said, it's good to change the atmosphere and go for leisure. The next morning, Sho woke up early, had breakfast with Lu, packed their bags for the trip, and set off. Lu ran quickly to beat Sho to the station. When they arrived, Sho said, was it necessary for you to buy a pink bag? How can a man like me carry a feminine bag? She said, I bought it because I'm a girl. You don't like it? That's your problem. Sho was shocked by her reply, and everyone at the station stared at them. Sho took the bag and inspected it. The clerk asked him, is this pink bag yours? Sho replied, yes, it's mine. The clerk apologized. Sorry if I was mistaken. He checked the bag and asked, does it contain animals? The rules prohibit animals on the train. Sho said, do you mean the squirrel? It's a toy, not a living animal. Just decoration. The clerk looked suspiciously into the squirrel's eyes while it remained still. A man passing by was eating chips, and the squirrel, very hungry, couldn't resist. It stared at him, which startled the clerk, and Sho took them away. Sho said to the squirrel, from now on, you will see tough days. I will make you memorize 80,000 words a day. The squirrel tugged at its hair and then looked at Lu, who was wide-eyed. Sho asked, can you climb? The squirrel replied, yes. Sho said, quickly pass through this opening, and we will meet on the platform in front of the train. The squirrel climbed up, gave the OK sign, and went ahead. Sho and Lu arrived at the platform in front of the train with 2 tickets. Sho said to her, I have a lower bunk and a middle one. Which do you prefer? She replied, I'll take the middle bunk. At that moment, a squirrel leapt down toward them from above. Lu handed it a chip, and the squirrel nearly burst into tears from joy, overwhelmed by her kindness. Sho asked in surprise, what's wrong with it? It was time to board the train. Lu was thrilled. They entered and headed toward their cabin, where they found 4 young men playing cards in their seats. Sho said politely, excuse me, this is my seat. The young man with purple hair replied, sit down for now. We'll finish the round, then get up. Sho knocked on the upper bunk and asked, what's this? The boy replied, the upper bunk. Sho knocked again and asked about the other one, the middle bunk. What else would it be? A third knock. And this one? The boy answered sharply, clearly annoyed. The lower bunk, obviously. Sho responded, no, this one is my lower bunk. The young man grew irritated. What do you mean? I won't let you sit on that bed. But Sho felt an aura emanating from them. He immediately knew the boy was a student from the Doujin class, yet so low-ranked that even a squirrel could likely beat him. The boy's classmate intervened. Enough, leave him be. We're from Doujin. We don't need to get into fights with ordinary people. Sho smiled. Excellent. So, you're from Doujin? The boy replied, yes. What about you? Sho answered confidently, I'm a reformist. The girl, Lyra, burst out laughing at his appearance. The boy sneered, and what exactly do you reform? Sho replied, I reform people I don't like. The boy was stunned by the response and nearly threw a punch, but his companions stopped him just before the ticket inspector arrived. They had no choice but to give up the seats. Sho placed the pink suitcase on the top rack. He and Lu stood, mesmerized by the view, as the train moved through the landscape. That evening, while Lu was asleep, Sho snuck off to a private spot and swallowed a fruit. He began training, and soon a phantom sword appeared in his hand. He started to channel energy into it. When he launched an attack, the glass in front of him shattered. Sho was stunned. He felt his power had doubled since unlocking the gate. He tried to replicate it, but failed. He knew he hadn't mastered it yet. He approached the window and muttered, I suppose I'll have to pay for the broken glass. He went to the inspector's room, left some money, and walked away without being seen. By morning, Sho tried to wake Lu, but she refused. He said, get up quickly so you can use the restroom before it gets crowded. She didn't respond. He teased, if you get up now, I'll make you noodles. She jumped up immediately. They went together to brush their teeth. Sho began preparing noodles as promised, while Lu waited. Sho brought the noodles, though he seemed uncomfortable, likely due to yesterday's training. Lu took the noodles and began to eat. Across from them, the 4 young men from earlier were talking about the black market. The purple-haired boy said to his friend, "Some people sell weapons, magical tools, even enchanted stones." She scoffed. "Are those your relatives? Can we even trust them?" He replied, "We'll go and see." She said, "But I don't even know the price of a magic stone. My family only gave me 50,000. He responded, "I have 120,000. Sho suddenly remembered what his friend G had said in Season 1, that a single enchanted stone could cost up to 100,000. He smirked slyly. The boy noticed and asked, "Why are you laughing?" Sho replied, "If someone had a magic stone, how much do you think they'd sell it for?" The boy laughed mockingly. "The weak make up for their lack of power with money." Sho said, "So your problem is poverty then?" The boy snapped, "Who are you calling poor? And what power do you even have? Look at what you're eating. Noodles." Lu responded, "Do the noodles bother you?" Sho pulled out a file. "We're with Dragnet. We don't need constant supervision from our leader, unlike you." The boy and girl were stunned when they realized Sho was part of Dujin's elite. Energy points flooded from them, and they were speechless. Sho told them, "You're just 4 from Class E. You're nothing." They couldn't believe they were facing a prodigy from the elite. Sho revealed an enchanted stone. "Isn't this what you were looking for?" They froze in place. Sho said, "Unfortunately, your money isn't enough to buy this stone." They sat in silence, not daring to respond. The train arrived at the station. Sho carried his bags while the 4 young men stayed seated, quiet. Sho and Lu watched them from a distance. Lu asked, "Aren't we having dinner?" Sho said, "Keep your voice down. We don't want them to hear. We'll follow them, find the black market, sell the stone, and then I'll treat you to whatever you like." They continued tracking them until a man in red appeared. Sho suspected he was the black market broker, but after checking his energy, he realized the man had no magical power. He concluded the man was a relative who came to pick them up. Sho whispered to Lu, "Something's off. That man has no magic energy. How would he know about the black market?" Lu asked, "So are we going to follow them?" He replied, "Of course. We've got nothing to lose." They began chasing the group, leaping across rooftops until the car stopped in a narrow alley and everyone got out for dinner. Sho noticed another car nearby, radiating magical energy. He knew something was off. He told Lu, "Stay here. I'll be right back." He walked swiftly to the car and knocked on the window. The man rolled it down and asked, "Is there a problem?" Sho said, "Do you have the time?" The man replied, "No," and closed the window. Sho knocked again. "Then do you have a phone?" "No," he said, closing the window again. Sho knocked a third time. The man was clearly losing patience. Sho asked, "Sorry, but what time is it now?" The man replied, "Check your phone." Sho said, "I forgot it." The man said, "It's 6:30. Sho thanked him and returned to Lu. He told her he suspected the man was from Dragnet, possibly a high-ranking member. He asked her to test the man herself. Lu approached the car and found a note taped to the window. "I don't know the time. I don't have a watch. I don't have a phone. I don't have anything." Annoyed, she removed the note. The man rolled down the window and asked, "Is there a problem?" She replied, "Nothing. I just wanted to tell you. It's 6:44 now." The man was stunned. She laughed. "I found your note." He gave a forced smile, took the note from her, and thanked her. Lu returned to Sho, and together they concluded the man was definitely part of Dragnet. Sho gave the squirrel a chip and told Lu, "I'm going after them. You and the squirrel stay here and wait for me." Before leaving, he said seriously, "Your safety is my top priority. If you sense any danger, run immediately. I'll find you at the black market." She agreed, and Sho dashed off, masked. He wandered through the stalls, checking magical tools, but realized they were fake. He began to suspect the entire market was a sham. Meanwhile, the 4 boys wandered the market, confused, unable to distinguish real items from fake. Sho, still in disguise, kept following them until a vendor called out, "Come, let me show you my goods." Sho stepped forward. The vendor laughed and tried to fool him. Sho walked away, realizing it was all fake. The vendor called out, "Wait, you have magical energy, don't you?" Sho replied, "Why do you ask?" The vendor said, "Because I have exactly what you're looking for." Sho approached. The vendor whispered, "We don't show the real items out in the open, but if you're a true fighter, I'll show you what I'm hiding." Sho said, "Sounds great. Just try to sound a bit more convincing." The vendor said, "I don't have magical weapons, but I do have an enchanted stone." Sho replied, "Show it to me." The vendor said, "First, show me your power." He placed an orb in Sho's hand, asking him to demonstrate. Sho crushed it instantly, then smacked the vendor on the head, knocking him down. The vendor stood up and said, "All right, follow me." The man kept walking with Sho silently following him until they reached a small room. He knocked on the door and someone came out, instantly sensing Shu's power. He realized Shu was one of the awakened, from Class A. Without a word, the man pulled out a small box and closed the door behind him. Shu opened the box and the man revealed the magic stones inside. Shu exclaimed with amazement, "Incredible! These stones are better than the ones I already have." The merchant replied, "I wanted you to realize I'm not like the other sellers. They all deal in counterfeit goods. None of them have anything genuine like what I carry." Shu asked, "And how much do you sell them for?" The seller said, "Forget the price for now. Think about how much time this stone could save you in training, how much power it could help you gain. Tell me, how much would you pay?" Shu responded, "Fine, but tell me your price." With a sly smile, the merchant said, "You want me to sell you these stones? These are the future, my son." Shu insisted, "Yes, but I still need to know how much." The man replied, 1,800,000. Shu chuckled, "Honestly, you should be asking for more." The merchant blinked, surprised. "More? How so?" Shu leaned forward, resting his hand on the merchant's shoulder. "Let me tell you the real price. Like you said, these stones are the future. Money? Just paper. It can't compare to time or to the future." The merchant was stunned, unable to respond. Then he muttered, "Fine. I'll sell them to you for 200,000. Shu replied, 200,000? That's a very reasonable price." The merchant handed over the stones, but before walking away, Shu placed his hand on his shoulder again and said, "Did you see what I just got? I now own the future. For just 200,000. What do you say? Want to buy it from me?" The seller stammered, "I mean, that's still a bit expensive." Shu replied, "All right then, let's settle it at 180,000. Like we originally said." The merchant fumed, but eventually gave in after a long negotiation and sold the stones for just 118,000. Shu took the money and tucked it away. The seller muttered, "I can't believe I sold you something that valuable." Shu replied calmly, "Don't worry, I still have more." The merchant was speechless. After Shu left, the seller sat down with the man who had originally handed him the stones. It turned out to be his son. The two began discussing Shu and the terrifying strength he had shown when he shattered the orb in mere seconds. The merchant pulled out one of the stones, reflecting on everything that had happened. Meanwhile, Shu double-checked the money and confirmed it was real. As he walked, he murmured to himself, "Back when I sold tofu and eggs, I never even came close to this kind of money." He continued on his way, until suddenly, he sensed a magical aura coming from a nearby merchant wearing a face mask. Curious, Shu approached him to investigate. He started browsing the goods. Shu asked, "Is your merchandise authentic?" The masked seller replied coldly, "No." Shu kept browsing, while the seller stared at him in frustration. Suddenly, the system scanned the man and identified his status. Shu checked it and saw that while the man wasn't weak, he wasn't from the Dagon either. Suddenly Shu grabbed his hand and asked, "Who are you really?" The seller tensed up, but Shu said, "Relax. I'm not here to arrest you. I just wanted to see your goods." The man answered, "I have something, but I only trade it for magic stones." Shu replied, "I have stones. The real question is your item worth the trade?" The seller responded, "You'll need to give me at least 5 stones." Shu thought to himself, magical weapons are rare these days. Trading 5 stones for one might not be such a loss. He pulled out a stone and said, "Here's one. Now show me your item." The seller agreed. "All right. Follow me." He led Shu down a narrow alley until they reached an empty space. The merchant pulled out a covered object. Shu looked at it and said, "Doesn't look like a magical weapon to me." But once the cloth was removed, Shu felt the intense magical energy. He realized the covering had been suppressing the energy flow. It turned out to be a magic vial. Shu asked, "What does it do?" The seller explained, "When you hold it, charge it with your energy and call someone's name." Shu interrupted, "What happens? Does the person appear?" The man answered, "No, their energy gets absorbed." Shu looked away, unimpressed. "I don't believe you." The seller replied, "I'll show you." He pointed the vial at Shu and called out a name. The vial charged up and shot energy at Shu, but Shu dodged it in time. Shu thought, if that person had really been nearby, would it have absorbed them? Then he asked to try it himself. He took the vial, called out someone's name, and the energy began to build. Suddenly, Shu's star map appeared, disrupting the process. He thought to himself, "So, I need to pour my own energy into it for it to work." The seller was confused that it hadn't activated, but Shu said, "Your item is broken, man." The seller gasped. "What?" Shu returned the vial. "It doesn't work. I don't want it." But the seller grabbed his arm. "You just saw it work. The problem's with you." "Fine. I'll lower the price. 4 stones." Shu paused, thought, and then accepted. He handed over 4 magic stones. The seller threw him the vial and shouted, "No returns, no refunds," then ran away. Shu stepped out of the alley and removed his mask. As he walked through the market, a boy with purple hair spotted him and said, "You were following us, weren't you?" Shu placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "This market is full of wonders. Buy whatever catches your eye." Then he left and returned to Luo, who was fuming because her shirt had been torn. Shu had used it as a mask. He told her, "Don't worry, I'll buy you a new one. Besides, I made a lot of money today. How about I treat you to some meat tomorrow?" Luo lit up with excitement, already imagining the meat, her mouth watering. She said, "Then let's hurry and sleep so we can eat tomorrow." Shu replied, "Wait, there's still something left." From the rooftop he spotted 4 guys passing below. He said, "I got a new weapon and I want to test it now." Luo kicked him and snapped, "Stop bullying people." Shu answered, "It's not bullying. I'm just testing its effect." He charged the vial with energy and hurled it at the purple-haired boy, but the boy sensed the attack just in time. He would have discovered them if they hadn't hidden at the last moment. The 4 guys left, finding no one there. Shu thought, "Did he sense me? No. It must have been the vial. Maybe it alerts the person whose name you call." He tested it again on a man sleeping in a cart. The man instantly woke up and hit his head. Shu muttered, "Something's wrong. I was told this thing would absorb people, but that guy tricked me." He looked at the vial and said, "Let's go. Tomorrow I'll treat you to that meat." The next morning, they went to a restaurant. Shu ordered 3 plates of meat. The chef was confused why 1 plate was for a squirrel but still prepared the food. Shu stood in front of him, insisting repeatedly, "More meat, more meat, more meat." The chef, frustrated, replied, "Why don't you come cook it yourself?" Luo finished her plate quickly and was thrilled with the meal. The squirrel, however, still had a full plate. Shu took a piece from the squirrel's plate and gave it to Luo. The squirrel nearly cried and snapped his stick in frustration. Shu asked him, "Did you memorize the words I gave you yesterday?" The squirrel glanced quickly at his plate and silently finished what remained. Luo was absolutely delighted with the meal, stolen as it was, while the squirrel was fuming. Meanwhile, Shu sat back thinking, ever since that squirrel ate the enchanted apple, his energy has increased a lot. I wonder what would happen if I gave him another one. Luo then asked, "Where are we going next?" Shu replied, "To the station. We're heading to Mount Ryo." At the station, Shu took out a magical apple and said to the squirrel, "This is a reward for you." The squirrel didn't believe it at first, but he couldn't resist the apple and devoured it in one bite. Suddenly, his strength increased, and fur began to sprout from his body. At that moment, the driver called out to Shu to board the bus, so he said to her, "Let's get on quickly and continue our conversation later." Before boarding, Shu noticed the vendor he had seen yesterday also getting on, heading in the direction of the mountain. Shu and Lulu boarded the bus, and Shu kept his eyes on the vendor in front of him, sensing that he was anxious. The man was carrying a strange-looking compass. Then, the 4 young men they had met the previous day boarded as well, and one of them joked, "Are you following us everywhere, man?" The bus took off, accompanied by a tour guide who began talking about the 3 days they would spend on the mountain. He explained to them about Mount Ryo, saying that its name was derived from a princess of ancient times. According to legend, this princess possessed a mirror, and one day, overwhelmed by sadness and anger, she hurled it to the ground, shattering it into 2 halves. One half landed on the eastern hill, the other on the western hill. By sunset, they had reached the mountain and began setting up their tents. Shu and Lulu sat facing the sea, enjoying the beauty of the sunset. He asked her, "When do you feel happy?" She replied, "When I go shopping with you, or when I see you cooking, and we sit down to eat together afterward. I truly find happiness when I eat with you." At that moment, she recalled all the times they had shared meals together, and they both savored the sunset. Suddenly, Shu sensed something strange. He saw a person radiating fiery energy running toward a motorcycle. As soon as he saw him, he realized it was Yang, the fire-wielding sorcerer who had appeared at the beginning of Season 1, whom the dragon organization was trying to capture. He was the same person who had attempted to burn Shu's hand in front of his house but had failed. What was strange this time was that the energy emanating from him was far more powerful than before, clearly from a different level. Shu decided to follow him to understand what he was planning. He said to Lulu, "I'll be back in a bit. Get the tent ready," then took off in pursuit until he saw him reach a tent where the vendor Shu had bought from was waiting. Shu stood outside the tent, eavesdropping on their conversation. The vendor said, "You must be more cautious this time. We're dealing with fighters from the outside. Don't let the dragon organization capture you again." Yang responded, "You know how much I suffered escaping from dragon." Upon hearing the phrase, "fighters from the outside," Shu immediately sensed they were planning something dangerous. Yang continued, "I don't think the gent are watching us now. I heard they're opening the Atab soon. so we need to act quickly before they turn their attention to us. Tell me where the object on the mountain is so we can escape to the outside. There, we'll bring in foreign fighters into the Atab and find magical weapons we can sell on the black market to become rich. The vendor replied, can we rely on these foreign fighters? You know it's hard to enter the Atab. Yang assured him, don't worry, they have their own ways. What matters now is whether the compass works well. We need to find the mirror I'm searching for. The vendor answered confidently, don't worry, the compass works perfectly and indicates the mirror is right here. At that moment, Shu understood why the vendor had seemed anxious since the beginning of the trip. He was planning to smuggle magical weapons out of the country. Yang continued, we'll take the motorcycle now and reach Mount Ryo in less than an hour. There, we'll seize the precious mirror. As they began moving, Shu backed away from the tent, thinking of how to prevent them from stealing the mirror. He kept watching Blung as he approached the motorcycle. Suddenly, without hesitation, Shu dashed forward, grabbed the motorcycle, hoisted it onto his shoulder, and began running with it. While Yang stood there stunned, unable to comprehend what was happening, Shu was running like a horse, overwhelmed with joy. He ran along the road until a truck appeared ahead of him. When the driver saw a man sprinting while carrying a motorcycle, he panicked and slammed the brakes. But suddenly, Shu leapt over the truck with the motorcycle, leaving everyone in utter disbelief. Meanwhile, Yang kept running after him, shouting for him to stop. But Shu didn't stop and kept running tirelessly. Yang became exhausted and called the vendor, come quickly to the mountain. The vendor asked, why? Where's your motorcycle? He replied, it was stolen. The vendor exploded, come to the mountain immediately. Shortly after, Yang arrived, panting, astonished that the thief hadn't tired out. The vendor also arrived, gasping for air, and asked, who stole the motorcycle? Yang answered, I don't know. The vendor said, I can understand someone stealing it while riding it, but carrying it on the shoulder and running off? Blang then said, I don't know, but aren't you supposed to be level D? How did you not catch him? Yang responded, I've never seen anything like that in my life. That person must be from level C. Suddenly the vendor asked, did you fight anyone? Yang replied, no. Blang began to wonder, what would motivate someone to do that? He concluded that the information must have leaked, possibly from someone within Dragon, since only they could do something that foolish. They then continued toward the mountain to find out who had stolen the motorcycle. On the other side, reports reached the Dragon organization, indicating that someone had been seen running while carrying a motorcycle, but surveillance cameras couldn't capture his face due to his speed. One agent said, he might be a professional fighter. Another replied, impossible. No professional would do something that ridiculous. The commander ordered all units to be deployed to search for him and personally set out with his team. They questioned every patrol but found nothing. Before leaving, he ordered them to continue the search. As for Shu, he had arrived at Mount Ryo, threw the motorcycle aside while singing, and began searching for the mirror they had intended to steal. He activated his skill to detect any magical energy, and once he sensed it, he rushed toward it. He stood at the spot emitting the energy and felt a hollow beneath his feet. He took out his eye of formation and transformed it into a drilling weapon. After he finished digging, Sho descended into the cave, using his phone's flashlight to light the way. He walked slowly and cautiously until he accidentally stepped on a trap. Sharp arrows shot toward him from every direction, but he miraculously managed to dodge them and continued his advance until he reached a strange chamber at the end of the cave. The room was dimly lit, with a stone table in the center, covered in a thin layer of dust. As he approached it, he found the half of the shattered mirror mentioned in the legend. The moment he tried to touch it, an intense light burst from it, nearly blinding him. He couldn't open his eyes, which burned and turned red from the brightness as tears streamed down his cheeks. At that moment, he received a system notification informing him that the two individuals who had been chasing him had reached his location. They had stopped outside the cave, near the motorcycle lying on the ground. Liang turned to the seller and grabbed him firmly, saying, "This means he's looking for the mirror too. You must have betrayed me." The seller replied angrily, "Me? How would I even know where your bike was? How can you accuse me of betrayal?" Liang shouted, "I didn't tell anyone where it was. That means it must be you." The seller retorted stubbornly, "And I didn't tell anyone either." Liang replied curtly, "It doesn't matter now. Take out the compass so we can locate the mirror. We'll settle our score later." The seller pulled out a magical compass which pointed to the same spot inside the cave. The two of them hurried toward the hole that Sho had dug. Liang stood at the edge and said to the seller, "You go down first." The seller protested, "Why should I go down? Why don't you just burn the whole place and be done with it?" Sho shouted from inside the hole, "Don't burn it. I'm coming up now." Liang asked, "What did you find down there?" Sho replied, I found half of the mirror. If you promise not to burn the place, I'll throw it up to you. Liang said. Then throw it quickly. Shou threw the half mirror and Liang caught it joyfully. He asked, and where's the other half? Shou answered, this is all there is. The other half isn't here. Liang said, then stay in the hole. I won't pull you out until we confirm it's the real mirror. Shou said, believe me, it's the original. Try it if you want. They tried it, and as soon as they opened their eyes toward it, a burning light shot out again, nearly blinding them both, causing the mirror to fall from their hands to the ground. Shou quickly climbed out of the hole and took the mirror. Liang tried to strike him with magical fire, but the attack missed and instead hit the seller, burning him severely. Seeing the chaos, Shou slipped his hand into his pocket and teleported away using magic. Liang, furious at the seller, struck him again with fire. Then he suddenly turned and was shocked to see Shou running away, carrying the motorcycle on his shoulder. Both Liang and the seller immediately descended the mountain, trying to catch up with him, but Shou was ahead, running with the bike still hoisted on his shoulder. They continued on foot until they saw a car approaching. The seller shouted, that's a Dragon Force vehicle. We have to run, but Liang grabbed him and said, run from what? We didn't do anything. Let's just walk calmly. The car stopped, and the unit commander stepped out and asked, did you see someone running with a motorcycle on their shoulder? Liang answered, no, we didn't see anything. Who would carry a motorcycle on their shoulder anyway? The commander smirked sarcastically and continued on, then suddenly stopped the car again and said, wait a second. You two are wearing strange clothes. Who are you? And what are you doing here? The seller panicked and started laughing for no reason. Liang turned to answer, but he was no longer beside him. He had already run off. The seller was forced to chase him, but the commander got out of the car and unleashed a magical skill that summoned vine-like cuffs, which wrapped around the seller. He cried out, Liang, help me! Liang paused and launched a fire attack at the commander, but the commander blocked it easily and ordered the rest of the team to chase Liang. Meanwhile, the seller kept screaming, don't leave me! But Liang ignored him, so the seller pointed at him and shouted, the one running away is Liang! He's from Category D and is a fugitive from Dragon Force. As soon as Liang heard that, he turned back furiously and launched a fire attack at the seller, who quickly pulled out a magical cloth that reflected the attack and set the whole area ablaze. The commander then realized the seller was trying to burn the entire site, so he ordered his forces to capture him immediately. The seller shielded himself with the magical cloth and stayed hidden, while Liang attacked the team again, but the commander blocked his attack. In that moment, rage burned in the commander's eyes. He activated one of his strongest skills. A massive orb of energy formed in his hand, radiating terrifying power. Liang froze in place, trembling and hesitant, and eventually raised his hands in surrender. The commander cancelled his skill and ordered the soldiers to restrain both Liang and the seller. They dragged them toward the vehicle. Before they entered, the commander turned and asked Liang, why were you carrying the motorcycle and running? Liang said, I swear it wasn't me. The seller said, the bike was stolen. The thief went that way. The commander didn't believe either of them, but he ordered the troops to continue the search, suspecting the presence of a third person. He then received a call from the team in the cave, informing him that they had found nothing in Mount Ryoma's cave. He asked, then what was in the cave? The seller answered, the person who stole the bike took something important, the princess's mirror. The commander was surprised and said, you mean the old legend people talk about? What good is a mirror like that? The seller replied, it can generate a blinding light that draws extreme attention. The commander laughed sarcastically and said, you think I'll believe such nonsense? Meanwhile, Shou had gone far, laughing joyfully as he ran with the motorcycle on his shoulder, collecting magical points from Liang and the seller. He kept running until he neared the camp. He dropped the bike to the ground and found Luo sleeping outside the tent. He stepped inside and said, sorry for the delay. I was dealing with some bad people, but I brought something important. Luo woke up excitedly and said, next time, let me fight with you. So, what did you bring? He pulled out the mirror and said, the princess's mirror the tour guide told us about. Luo was thrilled and asked if she could have it. He replied, no, I'm not giving it to you. She got upset, pushed him, and stormed into the tent angrily. At that moment, a dragon patrol passed by the camp. Liang and the seller were inside the vehicle. Soon after, a traffic jam occurred, and Shou stopped to see what was going on. He was thinking about what the criminals had said, about ruins that would open soon and the arrival of foreign fighters. He pulled out his phone, intending to report it to someone in authority, but he hesitated and decided to investigate on his own. As he was walking, someone called out to him from afar. It was his friend Ji. Shou said, I was on a trip with Luo. What are you doing here? Ji replied, Some ruins are about to open and they've been looking for you to join us. Sho was surprised and asked, I'm allowed to enter? Ji said, yes, because you're one of the top students who made great achievements in the last ruins. Sho felt proud and happy that he would have a role in the events to come. On the morning of the next day, the students participating in the trip were arguing with the tour guide due to the trip being cancelled. The guide said to them, the trip was cancelled against my will. It was the security forces that prevented the bus from entering. The boy with the purple hair replied, since we're going back, return our money. The guide responded, the problem isn't mine. It's a state issue. The argument continued until Shu and Lu entered. The guide asked him, where are you going? Shu replied, we're heading to the ruins that are about to open soon. Shortly after, Shu and Lu arrived at the site of the ruins. The security guard allowed Shu to pass because he had valid identification, but he stopped Lu because she had none. Then Ji intervened quickly and resolved the situation, handing the guard Lu's file. The guard took it and went to his superior to ask for permission for her to enter. Shu and Lu looked at Ji and smiled at him gratefully. After receiving permission, they were both allowed to enter. They entered the camp, and Lu was astonished by what she saw, as it was her first time experiencing something like this. Shu, on the other hand, suddenly felt a powerful presence near the shore. That man was an old and incredibly strong elder named Chen, who resembled Shu's elderly neighbor, Li, who lived nearby. Outside the camp, there was traffic congestion. From one of the buses, a group of people got off and gathered around a large rock. Then a strange fighter appeared and thanked them for coming from different parts of the world as foreign combatants. He told them the ruins were about to open and that the senior leaders had appointed him in charge of this operation. The head of the dragon forces was currently busy solving some issues in the south, and so could not personally oversee this mission. As for Elder Chen, who had arrived here, the leaders knew how to deal with him, and soon they would dispatch professional fighters to kill him. He added, as for us, we will be responsible for facing any resistance inside the ruins, and we must seize the Eye of Formation. At that moment, Shu recalled what happened 2 months ago when he visited his elderly neighbor Li and asked him to inspect his new sword. The old man took the sword, examined it, then threw it back and said, this is an ordinary sword, useless. Shu felt disappointed. The elder said to him, don't be sad. We are of a different lineage than the dragonette. We use the sword of mind. With it we can turn anything into a sword. Shu replied, but this sword of mind isn't something you can buy with money. The old man's face darkened upon hearing those words. He walked off to drink water, then returned and said, the sword you have can be enhanced by adding certain materials. Shu asked him, what do you think of today's fighters? Are they talented? The old man replied, yes, there are talented ones. The commander of the dragon forces is the best fighter in the East, a true elite genius. He's responsible for the borders, and with him there, no foreigner dares breach them. The second genius is his assistant, Sure. He's the true founder of the dragonette after me, though he doesn't have many qualifications. His will and determination are the core of his talent. With people like these, no one knows what the future may bring. And then there's the fighter Xiao, who runs like a madman. Shu and the elder laughed when Xiao's name was mentioned. The old man continued, there's also an elder named Chen, responsible for protecting the south. His strength is astonishing after decades of training, but his problem is his temper. He's always grumpy and short-tempered. At that moment, Shu returned to reality and realized the strong breeze he felt earlier by the sea had come from Chen himself. Shu stood there thinking, will these foreign fighters be different from the rest of the camp? Soon after, he took Lu and led her to the tent. As they passed by the cook, Lu smelled the food and stopped, unwilling to move. Shu had no choice but to carry her himself to the tent. Inside the tent, they met a chubby student named Xuan, who greeted them and introduced himself as an E rank. When Shu saw his watch, he kept staring at it. Xuan didn't understand what had caught his attention. Shu was mesmerized by the golden watch on Xuan's wrist. His eyes sparkled with a love for money. He grabbed Xuan's hand and said, my name is Shu. I'm also E rank. You said your name is Xuan, right? Where are you from? How old are you? How much did that watch cost? Lu and the squirrel were baffled by Shu's behavior. Shu snapped out of his amazement and felt he had ruined the mood. While Xuan stood shocked and speechless, Shu shook his hand and walked away. He then met another person wearing a suit. Shu said to him, I heard you accomplished something in the last ruins. The man introduced himself. My name is Gao, D rank. At that moment, Xuan got angry and said, I came to greet you earlier and you ignored me. Do you hate me? Shu pushed him aside and told Gao, I'm the one who achieved those accomplishments in the ruins. Gao asked, how are you still E rank? Shu feigned modesty and replied, unfortunately, I'm E rank, the lowest among the awakened. Xuan whispered to Shu while looking at Lu. Why did you bring kids with you? I heard the commander say that when we enter the land of radiance, we won't be able to fight if they're with us. Shu said, but the commander didn't say that. Xuan replied, he talks too much. How would I know? Shu told him, great. Go ask him and come back. Xuan received a verbal slap from Shu that left him unable to respond. Soon after, it was lunchtime. People stood in a long line. Shu and Lu waited until it was their turn. When the cook saw Lu, he was delighted to see a little girl in the camp. He said to her, I'll recommend you. You're precious to us. Lu was very happy and handed him her plate with joy. After getting their food, she sat with Shu to eat. He told her, eat comfortably. No one will say anything to you. She asked him, can I enter the ruins with you? Then pointed at Xuan and said, I'm stronger than him. I don't think he could even beat the squirrel. Shu replied, maybe he has some special skill we don't know about. Lu answered, I don't see any skill in him other than eating a lot. Shu laughed and told her, you really are stronger than him. She proudly said, of course I am. Shu said, I really wish you could enter the ruins with us, but I don't know how. As for Xuan, he was busy eating and reading about his teammates on his phone. He first read about Gao, whose family lives on the border. It was said he once faced a drug dealer and killed 4 armed men alone. The second was Ji, who had killed 6 of the ruins' bones. The third was Shu. Xuan was amazed by what he read, that Shu had shown outstanding skills, which earned him a spot in the Dragonet forces. He was even more shocked to learn that in the last ruins, Shu had defeated an army of skeletal knights alone and sold their magical weapons to everyone inside. At that moment, Xuan realized that Shu was their true leader. After lunch, they went out to the training yard of the camp where they found a large number of students from the Doujin class had arrived. Shu began examining them carefully, searching for any foreign fighters who might have slipped in among them. Xuan asked him, what are you looking at? Shu replied, none of them are wearing a watch. Xuan raised his hand and said, my watch costs 80,000, and I have even more expensive things at home. Gao said, I don't understand what's so entertaining about boasting over an 80,000 watch. Xuan thought to himself, you must be jealous. Ji then said, I don't know these students' qualifications. I fear they'll be a burden like in the previous ruins. Some of them got scared and couldn't handle it. Xuan replied, right. Do you guys know a girl named Si? Gao said, I've heard of her. They say she killed all the monsters in the last ruins. Shu said, you're right. Si really is a genius fighter. She managed to defeat many monsters with incredible skill and strength. At that moment, Si arrived at the camp. Shu said, there she is. Xuan went to greet her and introduce himself, but she ignored him. Then Gao straightened his tie and greeted her, but she ignored him too. The 2 of them stood speechless, and the 4 of them continued walking onward. Zhuo asked Xuan, you still don't know who's going to be in charge of the team this time? Xuan grew irritated by the question and replied, I have no idea who it'll be. All I know is that this person has a bad temper and is easily angered. But a word of advice. Don't speak English in front of him. Zhuo asked, why shouldn't I speak English in front of him? Xuan answered, you could never guess the reason, but what's important is that you avoid English altogether. The consequences could be dire, especially if you mix English with Chinese. Moments later they reached their tent. Ji asked him, why are you so focused on Xuan's watch? Planning to make a fortune like you did last time? Zhuo smiled and answered, of course I want to. As you know, life needs money. I'm not like you. I have a family to support. Ji looked at him sternly and said, a day will come when you'll have to choose between money and protecting people. What will you choose then? Zhuo replied, it's true people love money, but if we go through life just barely getting by, we won't have to rely on cheap means to get it. Ji was pleased by his response. He then showed Zhuo his phone and said, there's some info saying the strength of the beasts inside the ruins varies each time. Zhuo asked, are you saying this time will be harder than the last? Ji replied, yes. Just then Lu entered and said to Zhuo, I found a beautiful spot here. Come with me. I want to take some amazing photos by the sea. Zhuo pulled out his phone and said, take your pictures here. But she replied, no, I want beautiful ones. Zhuo flared up. Have I ever taken bad pictures of you before? In the end, they went together to the sea. Lu was overjoyed by the scenery. They walked until they reached an old man named Qin, standing with his back to the sea. Zhuo and Lu were about to return to camp when Elder Qin said, stop. Who told you to leave? They were puzzled. Zhuo asked, do you need anything, sir? The old man replied, I've heard good things about you from Xiao. Hopefully we'll do a fine job together in the ruins. Zhuo laughed, and Qin responded, you laugh? Then suddenly, he performed a powerful skill that made the birds fall into the sea. Zhuo was stunned and thought to himself, just how powerful is he? The old man approached him and said, "What you did in the last ruins annoyed me. Are you planning to interfere with my work too?" Zhuo was flustered and replied, "No." The elder said, "Wait, if you do plan to interfere then say so. If not, then be honest." Then he looked at Lu and said, "Well, little one, how about taking the old path and training under me?" Lu hid behind Zhuo and said, "I don't want to." The elder was shocked, and points appeared above his head. Zhuo thought to himself, when I refused to train with him, no points showed up. But when Lu refused, they did. That means he only wants Lu to train under him. The old man was surprised by how quickly she refused. He then said, "The ruins will open soon. Use this time to train well." Zhuo and Lu thanked him and started to leave. But just seconds later, he called Lu back. "What skill have you awakened? Sure, others may like your skill, but I might not." Zhuo said, "It's top tier." The elder was surprised. Lu hid behind Zhuo once more. He told her, "No one will dare mess with you if you train under me, so what do you say?" She replied, "No." He said, "I'll give you a magical weapon if you agree." She answered, "No." He snapped and asked, "Why don't you want to train?" She replied, "Because some people are hot-tempered and ill-mannered." The old man grew furious and asked, "Who told you that?" Then he unleashed another skill, making the birds fall into the sea again. At that moment, the fog began to draw near. The elder informed them that the ruins were about to open. Then suddenly, he called out to everyone in the camp to get ready. The fighters gathered and were divided into teams. Zhuo was assigned to one of the teams. He said, "Once we enter the ruins, we'll find ourselves in a random location. We won't know if it's dangerous or not, so we have to be ready." Zhuan, lifting his earpiece, replied, "Don't worry, we're together." Zhuo asked him, "What's your skill?" Zhuan said, "I'll tell you, but don't laugh. My skill is that I don't feel hungry when I'm full." Zhuo said, "What kind of skill is that?" "None of us feel hungry if we're full." Zhuan clarified, "Actually, when I eat good food, I can last 15 days without eating again." Zhuo burst out laughing and said, "What an amazing skill! I don't know how we'll survive without you." Zhuan suddenly felt worthless. Then he looked at Lu and asked, "Is this little girl really going into the ruins with us?" Lu gave him a scornful look. Suddenly, Elder Qin said, "This little one is stronger than you, by the way. And you, idiot, mind your own business." Zhuan nearly collapsed, but when he realized it was his grandfather speaking, he shut his mouth immediately. The grandfather said, "Don't open your mouth again or I'll throw you out." Zhuo looked at Xuan and understood that Elder Qin was his grandfather. Lu asked Xuan, "Have you ever dared to speak English to him?" He replied, "No, never." They continued walking as the fog thickened. Zhuo held Lu's hand and said, "If we get separated, let's meet in the center of the ruins. I'll wait for you there." She replied, "Okay." She was thrilled to finally work alongside Zhuo. Then they pierced through the fog and entered the ruins. At the same time, the villains and foreign fighters were preparing to break through the fog as well. Zhuo arrived at a place resembling a forest, accompanied by some students who had landed in the same area. The students were terrified of the forest they found themselves in and wanted to hide from danger, while Zhuo silently observed them. They remained frightened until a student named Wei, of a high rank, arrived. One of them said, "It's good that he's with us. All we have to do is follow him." Wei agreed and said, "You must all be cautious in the ruins and watch out for one another. Since we're a large group, we'll form a team, and I'll be the leader." Everyone agreed. He continued, "First, we need to choose a direction. Any suggestions?" One of them said, "We could follow the sun's direction." But when they looked up, the trees were too dense for sunlight to reach them. Wei said, "That won't work." Suddenly, Zhuo said from the back, "Then let's follow the moon." The leader grew furious and turned to the group. "We'll try climbing a mountain to get a view of the entire forest, then decide from there." Everyone liked the idea and agreed. But Zhuo seized the moment and said, "Why don't I climb a tree first?" He earned a few points from the leader, but the leader cleverly replied, "Since it's your suggestion, go ahead and climb the tree." Zhuo laughed and said, "You want me to climb when the tree's right in front of you? What if I get hurt?" Everyone was angered by his words and deducted points from him. Zhuo said, "I was just joking. You took it too seriously. I'm not one of those selfish people who are scared of death and send their comrades to explore in their place." The poor leader couldn't respond from sheer frustration, while Zhuo opened his system, delighted by how many points he'd gained. The team continued walking until they stopped by a tree. Zhuo climbed its trunk. Suddenly, a snake appeared and attacked him, but Zhuo grabbed its tail before it reached him, opened its mouth, and pulled out its fangs. The snake too emitted frustration points. Then Zhuo threw the snake down onto the students' heads, earning a large number of points. As he stood on the tree, he thought, if animals give off points too, why not take advantage? I could pull their fangs one by one. He felt the sturdy trunk beneath his feet. Looking around, he saw a vast forest stretching into the horizon. He then remembered what Ji had told him. The strength of spiritual energy in the ruins isn't constant in every area. Zhuo began to sense the spiritual energy around him and detected a massive force coming from ahead. He realized this must be the center of the ruins. Just then, the leader Wei called up to him. "What did you find?" Zhuo shouted. "Wow." They asked, "What did you see?" He replied, "Lots of trees. Come see." The leader nearly lost his mind. Zhuo said to him, "Come enjoy the stunning natural scenery." The leader collapsed to the ground, cursing him. Zhuo climbed down and said, "Night is approaching. Let's find a good place to camp." But the leader and the team completely ignored him. Seeing this, Zhuo turned back and looked toward the tree to scout the area again. Then he walked over to the nearby grass and began searching until he found an animal's skeleton. He panicked and called out to the leader to come see it. But the leader replied, "I'm sure you just want to show me more scenery, right?" Zhuo thought to himself, "Suit yourself. If you don't want to see it, that's your call." And the team continued their exploration. At night, Shu was walking behind the group until they reached a wide open area. The commander then said, "Let's keep moving until we meet our comrades in the timberlands." But suddenly, some grape-like points appeared in front of Shu. He stopped, opened his mouth and said, "I think it would be better to camp here in this open area. I just saw the bones of a beast under that tree. And besides, the trees here in the timberlands are unlike ordinary ones. I feel there's something strange about them. I won't keep going." The commander responded coldly, "Listen, Shu, don't be so alarmist." Shu insisted, "I know some of my recent actions made you lose trust in me, but this time, I'm serious. I hope you stay here." The commander thanked Shu for the warning but replied, "I think you're exaggerating a little. What matters now is rejoining our comrades as soon as possible, not wasting time here." He then ordered them to move on. Before they left, Shu said, "Take care of yourselves, and if anything happens, run back here immediately." After they departed, Shu thought of his sister Lu and wondered, "I wonder what she's doing now." Meanwhile, Lu was walking through the forest when she encountered a group of animals, including a tiger that tried to intimidate her. But she held her ground, gripped her face with confidence, and scared him instead. Suddenly, the earth beneath them trembled, and the animals panicked. The cause was Magi, a giant wild boar that approached Lu and roared in her face. She didn't flinch and remained firm. Then, she summoned the corpse of the laughing criminal to fight the boar. As for Shu, he was camping near the fire and eating, when he began noticing glowing points appearing around him without knowing where they came from. He then realized Lu had sent them and felt reassured. He had been wrong to worry about her. She was more than capable of protecting herself. However, what worried him now were the small animals surrounding him, acting increasingly aggressive. All the animals began gathering around the fire. Meanwhile, the trees of the timberlands started to move in strange ways and emitted unnatural lights until their branches reached out and seized one of the animals. At the same time, the commander's team continued walking through the forest when the surrounding trees began to emit a similar eerie light and grabbed one of the students. The commander rushed forward and sliced the branches with his sword, but more students were attacked and began screaming for help. The commander quickly realized the situation had spiraled out of control. Back at Shu's camp, animals surrounded him as he sat by the fire. He was deep in thought about the trees that attacked creatures at night. He decided to use the open space as a refuge for the wild animals. He stood before the tiger, and when it lunged at him, he landed a punch squarely on its face. The rest of the animals prepared to attack, but Shu drew his spear and began fending them off fiercely until fear spread through their hearts and they started fleeing. He chased after them wildly, joyfully collecting points from each one. He chased them until they were worn out, managing to trap them in a corner. They looked pitiful. He jokingly said, "Don't be afraid. I'm just a dentist. I'm here to check your teeth." Meanwhile, the commander's team continued fleeing from the attacking tree branches. Eventually, they heard voices nearby. The commander called out for help, and they ran toward the source, reaching a teacher accompanied by a group of students. The teacher said, "We need a clear area to camp until morning. We passed by an open area earlier, but it was full of wild animals. We couldn't stay there." Commander Wei asked, "Don't you know of a suitable place for us to camp tonight?" Wei then regretted not listening to Shu and told the teacher, "I know an open area." They all rushed and finally arrived at Shu's campfire, only to find him busy pulling out a decayed tooth from an animal, while the rest stood in line waiting their turn. The commander and his team were baffled and certain that Shu must be insane. The commander called out, "What on earth are you doing?" Shu replied with surprise, "I'm pulling out rotten teeth so they won't die from them." He then reached into the mouth of a small leopard and extracted a tooth, saying, "I'm worried this little one might die because of that tooth." The students couldn't make sense of it until the teacher approached, greeted Shu, and said, "The forest is extremely dangerous at night. We've come to camp with you. Don't worry, we'll help you kill these animals." Shu became angry and snapped, "These animals are innocent. Why would you kill them? I'm just examining their teeth, for their own good." Then, he took some points from the teacher. The teacher asked, "What if these animals attack us while we're sleeping?" Shu looked at the animals and they all shivered and nodded their heads as if to say, "We won't attack." So, the teacher informed his students they'd camp there for the night. Wei sat beside Shu and apologized for not listening to his advice. Shu smiled and said, "Apologize for what? You're the one who got hurt, not me." Wei left, and the teacher asked Shu, "What do you think about joining us tomorrow?" Shu replied, "I have important things I need to take care of. I suggest you join the other groups as soon as possible. Every night, find an open area to sleep in." The teacher was puzzled and asked, "You'll walk alone in the forest? You should stay with us. At least if you face danger, we can help you." But Shu remained silent, then stood up and went to sleep. The next morning, the teacher and students woke up. The teacher felt like he hadn't slept well and began looking for Shu, but he was nowhere to be found. One student was about to brush his teeth and had put toothpaste on his brush, but the teacher stopped him and said, "Don't waste the water, it could run out, and we'd all die. Conserve it until we find a reliable source." He then thought to himself, "If we had killed a few animals last night, we'd have enough food now, but Shu wouldn't let us." Suddenly, he felt a strange movement behind the bushes. The ground trembled beneath them. He quickly alerted the students, drew his sword, and told them to prepare for battle. A group of animals appeared, walking in a single line toward them, led by the giant wild boar, Magi, with Lu riding on its back. The teacher and students were stunned. He asked in shock, "Who are you?" She answered, "I am Lu, beast tamer. I have a question. Have you seen a tall young man, about this height, named Shu?" As for Shu, he sneezed in a faraway place while walking, as if he could feel someone talking about him. The teacher pointed to the path Shu had taken, and Lu was overjoyed. She would finally be able to see him again. She took off with her animals in search of him. And with that, the second season of Shu's tale comes to an end. If you'd like to see the third and final season, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with new videos, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss a single episode. Hit the like button to show your love for this story. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.